Okay, picture this. You're a top physician, right? Dr. Brigitte Gessner. One moment, you're caught in some awful trauma. The next, you're floating above your own body. Snow's coming down, but you don't feel cold. Nothing. You're absolutely convinced you've died, but somehow your mind, it's sharp, logical, still working. What is possibly going on there?
It's an incredibly vivid image, isn't it? Really grabs you. And, it's the perfect starting point for our deep dive today, learner. We're exploring this really fascinating collection of ideas, mostly coming from Dan Brown's novel, The Secret of Secrets. It's quite a ride.
It really is. So today, we're not just talking about a book. We're diving headfirst into this world where you've got ancient symbols bumping up against the latest neuroscience, and the big questions are about reality itself. Consciousness, what's real. Our mission here is to unpack all that, the concepts, the story, the really deep questions these sources bring up. We want to guide you through some potentially mind-blowing ideas about being awake and what we might be missing. Get ready for some serious aha moments, hopefully. Okay, so let's get into it. We start in Prague. Beautiful city, very mystical vibe, but things get, pretty confusing pretty fast. Our first bit of material introduces Dr. Brigitte Gessner, the physician we mentioned, having this out-of-body sensation after something traumatic happens. She can't remember the immediate past, just pain. And then she's floating, looking down at the Wallenstein Palace gardens, feeling alive, totally aware, but not in her body. It's this intense conflict, right? Her medical training versus this thing she just knows is happening.
Exactly. And what's so compelling is that internal struggle. As a doctor, her first reaction is, no way. Afterlife. That's a shared delusion, a coping mechanism. But she can't just dismiss how real, how vivid this experience feels. So she labels it an OBE, an out-of-body experience. Medical books describe these, usually as hallucinations, triggered by extreme stress, lack of oxygen, maybe in patients who've been resuscitated. And the pattern is almost always the same. Mind separates, floats up, feels like an imagined journey.
Yeah.
So the real question hanging there is this just a known medical thing happening to Gessner, or is it something more?
That's the core tension, isn't it? That internal battle. And speaking of unsettling stuff, the focus then shifts to Robert Langdon, the symbologist. He's in Prague too, staying at the fancy Four Seasons. But his morning, it turns absolutely terrifying. He has this incredibly vivid dream, or maybe it's more than a dream, a premonition. Sees a hotel explosion, this woman wearing a black radiant crown, carrying a silver spear. And this awful smell, like death. It's so real, it completely panics him.
Yeah, it's visceral, and it drives him to actually pull the fire alarm, then jump into the freezing Vltava River. He's convinced danger is right there, right now. And here's the kicker. His actions are, validated. The Czech intelligence service, the UZSI, they find a bomb later. Diffused at 7 a.m., exactly when he was panicking. Now, Langdon, he's always been the skeptic about this stuff, right? Precognition, he calls it history's oldest delusion. He even shows his students how easily our minds can be fooled into seeing patterns or predicting things. So for him to experience this, it's deeply confusing. What really hits you there is that dissonance. How does someone so rational deal with something so undeniably real, something that actually, saves lives?
That cognitive dissonance, exactly. It's like, how do you fit that into your worldview? A lifetime of skepticism versus one event, you just cannot explain away. It shakes his whole foundation. And that whole theme of perception, of what's real, leads us right to by why Langdon's even in Prague. It's for his colleague Katherine Solomon's lecture, a big one, at Prague Castle, all about consciousness. And she starts, simply enough, ask the audience, define consciousness, what is it? And everyone pretty much agrees on the standard answer, the currently accepted model. The brain creates it, those neurons firing away. Simple, or so you'd think.
Right, seems straightforward. But Katherine, she immediately throws a wrench in the works. She challenges that whole model, and she cleverly brings Langdon into it, using his expertise. Symbols, he talks about the halo, that disk of light you see over saints, gods, Ra from ancient Egypt, Buddha, Hindu figures, Jesus, Mary, even the Statue of Liberty's crown, he points out. But here's his insight. Older depictions often showed light rays coming out of the person, not just floating above them, emanating from them. He suggests maybe it symbolized receiving wisdom, divine input, rather than broadcasting something. Like consciousness is something you tune into, not just generate.
Ooh, I like that distinction. Receiving, not broadcasting. And that's Katherine's cue, isn't it? This is where she really dives in, arguing the traditional model is basically wrong. She introduces this radical new idea, non-local consciousness.
Exactly. A non-local consciousness. And if we try to connect the dots here, this model says your brain doesn't make consciousness. It's more like a sophisticated radio receiver. It tunes into consciousness that already exists everywhere, all around us. The universe, in this view, is this vast field where the source material says all things existed at all times in all locations. Kind of mind-bending stuff. To make this concrete, she uses this amazing visual. Imagine two goldfish, separate bowls, seemingly, but they're swimming perfectly together, mirror images. Then you pull back, change perspective, maybe an aerial view, and you see they're actually in one shared environment, one organism. It's stunning, and it makes you ask that crucial question: how much are we missing? How much is our reality just limited by our viewpoint, by the physical brain we're using to perceive it?
Wow, that goldfish analogy really clicks.
Yeah.
Like we're just seeing a tiny part of the whole picture. And she builds on this, talking about brain filters, chemicals, specifically GABA, a neurotransmitter. Apparently GABA kind of regulates how much reality we can handle. Newborns have high levels protecting them from sensory overload. Makes sense. And get this, Tibetan monks, high GABA levels during deep meditation. That's linked to that profound calm. But the flip side, low GABA, like during an epileptic seizure or maybe with psychedelics, that can lead to something called postictal bliss, or an expanded state, peaceful, sometimes OBEs, bursts of creativity.
And that idea of GABA as a protective veil, that's absolutely central to the whole story here. The implication in the sources is that we're basically chemically shielded from seeing reality as it truly is, until death maybe, when those filters dissolve. This offers a kind of biological, almost logical framework for things previously dismissed as just weird. Paranormal, ESP, sudden savant syndrome, stuff like that. It fundamentally challenges how we see ourselves. If our brains are filtering reality for us, for survival, what else is out there? What could we perceive if those filters weren't so strong? It turns everything upside down.
Right. So Catherine's about to publish this bombshell book, and naturally that's when the danger ramps up. A plot unfolds. We meet this really strange character, the Golem. He's described hobbling through Prague, smeared with clay, the Hebrew letters for truth, emet, on his forehead. He sees himself as a protector, like the old Prague legend, and he's there to protect her, Katherine Solomon.
Yeah, he's this enigmatic figure. But his story reveals a very deep, very personal tie to someone else, Sasha Vesna. She's a Russian patient of Dr. Gessner's, the one with epilepsy. He believes he's her guardian angel, but more than that, her alter, a separate personality protecting her core, gentle self. This puts a really interesting spin on dissociative identity disorder, DID. The novel suggests it might not just be psychological fragmentation. Maybe it's like distinct individuals literally coexisting, picking up different stations on the brain's consciousness radio. Wild idea. And he feels fiercely protective. He thinks Gessner and others are exploiting Sasha, which is what draws him to her lab.
Gessner's lab. It's called Crucifix Bastion. Turns out it's just a front for something much bigger, much more secret. A top-secret CIA project, codenamed Threshold, hidden under Philomaca Park. And this isn't some small setup, it's huge. Underground chambers, an EPR machine that's a electron paramagnetic resonance to protect the brain during extreme states, all focused on consciousness research.
Right. And the CIA's motivation, it's laid out pretty starkly. The director, Judd, he believes, quote, "The human mind is the world's next battlefield." Chilling. He sees Threshold as America's edge in this invisible arms race to understand and maybe even control consciousness. They're pouring money into fractal tech, brain implants. And here's a twist. Katherine discovers they're using her design for artificial neurons. From her postgraduate thesis, stolen years ago, 23 years I think it was, for these implants. It forces that ethical question right to the surface, doesn't it? When does national security become a blank check for deeply unethical science on people?
Exactly. And it gets darker.
Yeah.
Sasha Vesna, Gessner's patient. Patient #002 in Threshold. She has one of these implants, a subcranial chip, and it's way beyond just treating epilepsy. Threshold's real goal, to push subjects into out-of-body states, keep them there, suspended for an hour or more, and use the implants to record what they perceive in that state of non-local consciousness, trying to map the unseeable, essentially.
And this isn't entirely out of the blue for the CIA, according to the source material. It builds on their real-world history with things like Project Stargate. That was their program looking into remote viewing, psychic phenomena. Apparently they got some successes, dubbed 8 martini results, meaning the intel was so shocking you needed, several drinks to process it, spying on Soviet subs, finding kidnapped victims, supposedly. But Threshold is different. It's explicitly called a death lab, designed to capture insights from the moment of death itself when those brain filters supposedly drop. Finch, the guy running Threshold, he justifies it with this kind of cold utilitarian logic. The ultimate test of a man's conscience is his willingness to sacrifice something today for future generations. It's a terrifying philosophy when applied like this.
Yeah, really disturbing stuff. So the climax approaches. The Golem, who we now know as Dmitry Sisevich, another epileptic patient Gessner experimented on, he confronts Finch inside Threshold, Dmitry's already killed Gessner. He saw her betrayal of Sasha as unforgivable. Now he's there to end Threshold itself.
Right. It's an act of what he sees as retribution. Protecting Sasha is his driving force, his entire purpose as this alter. He sees Finch and Gessner as monsters who abuse Sasha's vulnerability. And in this very dramatic sequence, he uses Gessner's own stolen thumbprint to get into the secure areas. Then he sabotages the cooling system, the liquid helium for the SMES, that's the superconducting magnetic energy storage, big energy vault, causes this massive catastrophic explosion, wipes out Threshold completely. The ground above the park, apparently it literally heaves up and then collapses. It's incredibly violent, yes, but it highlights the extreme lengths this protective personality will go to, driven by the trauma inflicted on Sasha.
Wow. So in the chaos afterwards, Ambassador Hyde-Nagel appears. She yells Katherine and Langdon. And she confesses her own part in it all. She was basically a diplomatic pawn for the CIA, forced to help get Threshold built. She felt trapped, too.
Nagel's intervention is key to the resolution. It's spurred on by a video Gessner left behind, confessing about the human testing and also revealing the death of Michael Harris. Harris was Sasha's lover, but, plot twist, he was actually a CIA asset planted to watch her. Tragic stuff. So Nagel helps secure asylum for Sasha and Sasha. She comes out of this induced sleep-like void they had her in. But interestingly, her memories of Harris are fading, like she's being wiped clean, ready for something new. It really underscores how fragile memory and identity can become when consciousness is messed with like that. Makes you wonder, how stable our own sense of self really is.
Absolutely. So the deep dive kind of wraps up with Katherine and Langdon basically reaffirming the central idea, the secret of secrets, which is that death is not the end, that science keeps finding hints, evidence, that there's something more, something beyond this physical life. And Katherine, she's more determined than ever. She's going to publish her book, even if she has to rewrite parts after everything she's learned and witnessed.
Wow.
Okay. What a journey that was.
Yeah.
Seriously. From doctors floating outside their bodies to psychic spies and questioning the very nature of reality, this deep dive into the secret of secrets, it really makes you rethink some fundamental things about the mind, the universe.
It absolutely does. It pushes you to consider, maybe seriously consider, that what we experience every day, our normal consciousness, it might just be one channel, one frequency, chemically filtered maybe, for our own good, for survival. And if that's even possibly true, well, it blows open everything. Questions about human potential, sure, but also huge ethical questions about where science should and shouldn't go, especially when it touches the core of being human.
Yeah, huge questions. So, thinking about all this, what does it mean for you, our learner, listening right now?
Well, for one thing, it suggests maybe the things we call paranormal aren't unnatural. Maybe they're just at the edge of what our current science can grasp. Pushing boundaries, it definitely encourages critical thinking, right? About the information we get, the narratives we're told, and considering maybe there are hidden forces, hidden potentials shaping our world. And maybe the biggest thought, if consciousness isn't just locked inside our skulls, if it really does permeate everything, as Katherine suggests, how could that change everything? Our relationships, how we deal with conflict, our sense of being connected as a species. It shifts the perspective from just me to maybe a much bigger us.
That is a profound thought to end on. And just to push it one step further, if our brains are receivers, like radios, and we do have this potential for, wider awareness, what if we could somehow, ethically, safely, just dial down those filters a little? What would happen? Would it lead to that unified species Katherine dreams of? Or would it just be too much? Sensory overload, chaos, something to definitely mull over. Maybe next time you're looking up in the night sky. Food for thought until our next deep dive.